Hello YouTube. Today I want to share more from my research about Vimanas, those wonderful and highly advanced aircraft of ancient India, a great civilization that has vanished but had existed thousands of years ago or more. And when I say vanished, it's still possible to find very interesting sources that tell the story of Vimanas and other achievements of this civilization. It just takes tedious research, but it's out there. You see, the ancient Indian author Kalidasa, who lived in the 5th century before Common Era, wrote about Vimanas in the works titled Raghuvasam and Abhinanasakuntala Shakuntalam, the sign of Shakuntala. You see, Shakuntala was married to Dushyanta, and she was the mother of Emperor Bharata. Her story is told in the Adi Parva, the first of 18 parts of the ancient Indian epic Mahabharata, and dramatized by many writers, the most famous adaptation being Kalidasa's play Abhinana Sakuntala. For example, there is a story about how the protagonist, King Dushyanta, descended from the sky in the flying chariot of the god Indra. He was so brave that even Indra, the lord of the gods, sought his help. Dushyanta, the hero of Kalidasa, was a perfect king. He is compared with gods and is shown as equal to Indra in heroism. The chariot was moving along the second level of winds that surrounded the earth, that is at the altitude of 8 to 11 kilometers. When it descended through the layers of clouds, its wheels became wet and lightning flashed around, and so this apparatus passed through the clouds. Hilltops and rivers appeared. 3 branches that could not be seen from a great height could now be seen, and the earth's surface began to approach. Descending from the aircraft, Dushyanta noticed to his great surprise that no sound was heard anymore. Nevertheless, the wheels continued to rotate, and the chariot itself did not even touch the ground. The charioteer of the gods, Matali, and by the way, you can meet with him in my other videos, especially about those underwater demons and their war with the other beings of the described in Mahabharata. Very interesting. Anyway, Matali, who drove the chariot, explained to Dushyanta that this was possible due to the special magical properties of the air car of the god Indra. Concluding their battle, they flew in winged chariots to the heavenly abode of Indra, where Dushyanta was entertained for a time by the Lord of Heaven. He seated King Dushyanta beside him on a throne of beaten gold and smiled. Then the Lord of Thunder, Indra, placed around his neck the heavenly wreath of flowers, still fragrant from the sandalwood paste on his own neck. He lauded King Dushyanta for his heroism in battle against the mighty Rakshasa warriors. Let me describe this battle of the heavens in some detail so you understand the level of technological development of the ancient civilization. Some technology is so advanced that I really cannot find equivalent today. Dushyanta ascended into the heavens on a winged chariot guided by Matali to assist the god of rain against the race of mighty demons and giants who had kidnapped his erstwhile fool. What a reason for the war, but that's what we're given. Matali said, "My lord, the king of rain is powerless against this foe and bids you smite these demons with your sharp arrows. As darkness falls, the orb of night shall rise and light our way. Set us forth for victory, O king. Let us ride upon the clouds until they fled." And moving to the clouds, they dispatched those hellish hordes. the invincible brood of Kalanemi. The vampire demons were forced to release the jester of the king and swear allegiance to the god of rain. King Dushyanta recovered his beloved clown in the battle, while Indra was pleased to see the demons flee screaming from the fight. Interesting. I think we have descriptions of missiles being launched at the enemy. And the invisible ones, well, that's very interesting. Let's continue. Now, some description of the operations of the airship. And bidding leave of Indra, King Dushyanta, along with his court jester, boarded the airship of Matali, chariot to the gods, and so began the long descent to his earthly kingdom. And Dushyanta said, "When we passed this way before, we fought the man-eating devils and their flying machines. I was so intent on unleashing showers of darts upon those fiends that I had not noticed this magic land. And as they ranged the sky, they passed many a snow-capped peak that pierced the clouds, and by they came to a mystic mountain range of pure gold. We shall land down there for a time," said Matali, chariot to Indra, god of rain. And so saying, he began to guide the airship in its fall through the clouds. "How strange to fall from the sky in your airship," said the king. "Below I see the falcons turn and wheel, and far below us the plains come closer. A silver strip that streaks between the green becomes a raging river running through the wheat. And as we fall, the river network is clear. The smaller streams appear. The spots of green have changed to massive trees. The valley of liquid gold has turned to a field of wildflowers, mustard yellow." And when the craft had landed, Dushyanta said, "How curious is this place! We are surrounded by snow-capped mountains, where only stony crags welcome our view. But here a warm breeze wafts jasmine flowers through the fields. Eagles fly from their mountain caves high above us. But here below, this valley is blessed with calm." And so he hovered in his winged chariot a few palms' length above the ground. And so the airship glided on the wind until they found the ashram of that great saint Kashyapa, son of Marichi. Behold Kashyapa Muni, son of Marichi, the progenitor of gods. So a very interesting description of something like an advanced helicopter combined with other aircraft features. We will not retell the complete story of the king, but suffice it to say that his beloved Shakuntala forgave Dushyanta, and they were reunited blissfully. She gave birth to a male child who was called Bharat, after whom India got its name. Just remember, Dushyanta is a king of Chandravamsha, lunar dynasty, featured in Hindu literature. The lunar dynasty is a legendary principal house of the Kshatriyas Varna, or warrior ruling caste mentioned in ancient Indian texts. This legendary dynasty was said to be descended from the moon-related deities, Soma, or lunar. Now let's turn to the book titled Brihatha Shlokasangraha by the Nepalese poet Budgaswamin. This is a retelling of selected excerpts from the Brihat Katha of the poet Gunadhya, who, according to modern researchers, lived and worked in the 3rd to 4th centuries Common Era. Brihat Katha means ocean of stories. One of his heroes, King Udayana, set out to fly around the earth in an air chariot. Unfortunately, the artisans he convened were not able to create the required apparatus. The case was helped by a traveling craftsman who made for the king a flying chariot in which the entire royal family could fit. Udayana circled the earth, after which he sent the ship to the capital of Avanti, where exactly the holiday was taking place. The ship hung in the air, and Udayana admired the festive spectacle for a long time. Interesting. So they had traveling engineers who would create aircraft. Again, to me, similar to our helicopter, maybe much more advanced. So let's continue and go on to Sagara, Ocean of the Streams of Stories. It's a famous 11th century collection of Indian legends, histories, and folktales as retold in Sanskrit by the Shavite Somadeva. Sagara contains multiple layers of story within a story and is said to have been adapted from, again, Gunadya's Brihat Katha, the great narrative, which was written in a poorly understood language known as Paisak. Gunadya is told to record them in Paisak dialect, which is the language of the goblins, according to one source. This could be any creature described as a goblin. I will not go into that, but in itself, it's very interesting. The content of the Brihat Katha is also shrouded in mystery. Gunadya composed Brihat Katha based on 3 sources. He also knew many tales of sea voyages and strange adventures. The Brihat Katha is no longer existing, but several later adaptations still exist. For example, Katha Sagara. However, none of these recent accounts necessarily derives directly from Gunadya, and each may have intermediate versions. In the book Katha Sagara, Oceans of the Streams of Stories, born by the genius of the Kashmiri poet Somad Devi, we meet at every step the expressions such as airship, heavenly ship, cunningly made flying ship, and so forth. Okay. Igor Dmitrievich Serebryakov was a Soviet and Russian Indologist and Sanskritologist, translator of Sanskrit, Hindi, and Punjabi. In collaboration with Rabinovich, he was the compiler of the first Punjabi Russian dictionary and the winner of the Jawaharlal Nehru Award. So he was a well-known scientist. He knew his subject matter. Here's what Serebryakov writes in his commentary. And remember, he translated this work into Russian in 1972 and also in Ukrainian in 1984 with the help of Mikitenko. Unlike the usual fabulous flying carpets and flying chariots, Somadeva simply talks about airships that move in the air with the help of mechanical engines and travel considerable distances at high speed. It is also interesting that in Somadeva's stories, these airships are used for different purposes. Even elephants are airlifted when one of the characters did not have enough of this ancient Indian military force. The Katha Sagara is a large work. Each book comprises a number of stories loosely strung together by being narrated for the recreation or information of the same individuals or arising out of their adventures. These are Udayana, king of Kosambi, and his son Naravahanadatta. The 5th book, Katurdarika, records the adventures of Saktivega, who became the king of the heavenly beings termed Vidyadharas, a class of spirits who reside upon the loftiest peaks of the Himalaya mountains. While a mortal, he possessed superhuman longevity and faculties including clairvoyance and extrasensory perception. Very cool. And when you read descriptions of other weapons that ancient India possessed, you can see it in my videos. You can see weapons based on the psi technology, ESP, and technologies we don't even grasp today. Narava Hanadatta is prophesied to be a king of the Vidyanharas. Well, Burgansky and Furdui, Soviet and Ukrainian authors, I quote sometimes in my videos, about advanced ancient civilizations and ancient aliens, once wrote the following: "We have come with you to an interesting and at the same time strange place in our search. In all the stories from the Mahabharata, Ramayana, and Ayurveda, the flying ship already exists, and it appears in the text only as a vehicle. Nothing is said about its creators as well as about what made it fly. Only the impressive details of the flight are given: the roar, fire, and violent flow of air, which is typical for folklore and epic works. This was how the power of the fabulous ship and its ruler was exaggerated and emphasized. Then maybe the Vimanas and Yanas, flying chariots, of the Indian epic are nothing more than, say, a variation of fabulous flying carpets. But it is surprising that in the vast majority of Indian epic works, the characters invariably and in a completely ordinary way travel almost exclusively on airships, while in the folklore of many other people, if they are able to fly, then for the most part, they do so on fabulous living creatures such as the Russian flying horse, or dragons, snakes, jinns, ifrits, etc. And only in some cases special transport technical means appear. In Russian tales, that would be Baba Yaga's stupa and broom, which I described in my other videos as being a description of alien and its flying craft. Also, flying ship in a famous Ukrainian fairy tale, the most famous Arab flying carpet, fast-moving boots, magic shoes, and so forth. All these vehicles are a purely fabulous device, an auxiliary means of plot development. There was no need for the creators of fairy tales to tell in detail exactly how this or that flying ship or carpet was arranged, not to mention the magic shoes. It made no difference to the content of the tale. Another thing is in Indian literature, but we'll talk about this further. In the future, as I have previously, I will present more of the view of the Ukrainian authors, but now I want to present views and knowledge of V.R. Ramachandra Dikshitar, a great scientist who lived in India. Let me read you from his wonderful book. No question can be more interesting in the present circumstances of the world than India's contribution to the science of aeronautics. There are numerous illustrations in our vast Puranic and epic literature to show how well and wonderfully the ancient Indians conquered the air. To glibly characterize everything found in this literature as imaginary and summarily dismiss it as unreal has been the practice of both Western and Eastern scholars until very recently. The very idea, indeed, was ridiculed, and people went so far as to assert that it was physically impossible for man to use flying machines. But today, with balloons, airplanes, and other flying machines, a great change has come over our ideas on the subject. In the recently published Samardgana Satradra of Bhoja, a whole chapter of about 230 stanzas is devoted to the principle of construction underlying the various flying machines and other engines used for military and other purposes. The various advantages of using machines, especially flying ones, are given elaborately. Special mention is made of their attacking visible as well as invisible objects, of their use at one's will and pleasure, of their uninterrupted movements, of their strength and durability, in short, of their capability to do in the air all that is done on earth. After enumerating and explaining a number of other advantages, the author concludes that even impossible things could be effected through them. 3 movements are usually ascribed to these machines: ascending, cruising thousands of miles in different directions in the atmosphere, and lastly, descending. It is said that in an aerial cart, one can mount up to Surya Mandala, solar region, and Nakshatra Mandala, the stellar region, and also travel throughout the regions of air above the sea and the earth. These cars are said to move so fast as to make a noise that could be heard faintly from the ground. Still, some writers have expressed a doubt and ask, was that true? But the evidence in its favor is overwhelming. And here's more from that book. The flying Vimana of Rama and Ravana was set down as but a dream of the mythographer, till airplanes and zeppelins of the present century saw the light of the day. The Mohanastra, or the arrow of unconsciousness of old, was until very recently a creature of legend, till we heard the other day of bombs discharging poisonous gases. We owe much to the energetic scientists and researchers who plod persistently and carry their torches deep down into the caves and excavations of old and dig out valid testimonials pointing to the misty antiquity of the wonderful creations of humanity. The title of the book is War in Ancient India by V.R. Ramachandra Dikshitar, M.A., University of Madras, and it was published in 1944. This work has been selected by scholars as being culturally important and is part of the knowledge base of civilization as we know it. This work is in the public domain of the United States of America and possibly other nations. Within the United States, you may freely copy and distribute this work, as no entity, individual or corporate, has a copyright on the body of this work. Now, Vishnam Pet R. Ramachandra Dikshitar, who lived between 1896 and 1953, was a historian, Indologist, and Dravidologist from the Indian state of Tamil Nadu. He was professor of history and archaeology at the University of Madras and is the author of standard textbooks on Indian history. But let me finish today by reference to the man I greatly respected and whose research I have quoted in my books and lectures and videos, Alexander Garbovsky, Soviet and Russian author, whom I corresponded with decades ago. He passed away in 2003, has stated this in his work, Riddles of Ancient History. The Mahabharata, an ancient Indian epic compiled 3,000 years ago, contains a reference to a terrible weapon. Regrettably, in our age of the atomic bomb, the description of this weapon exploding will not appear to be an exaggeration. Blazing shaft, possessed of the radiance of smokeless fire, was let off. This was how this weapon was perceived. The consequences of its use also evoke involuntary associations. This makes the bodies of the dead unidentifiable. The survivors lose their nails and hair, and their food becomes unfit for consumption. For several subsequent years, the sun, the stars, and the sky remain shrouded with clouds and bad weather. This weapon was known as the weapon of Brahma, or the flame of Indra. This, I believe, tells us how the ancient advanced civilization perished. Look at my other videos about ancient India and warfare using advanced aircraft and advanced weaponry. But I believe not everything did perish, and some knowledge has survived. Maybe more than just the knowledge. So I will continue using my torch, so to say, to bring out more interesting information for you. And if you like my research, please support me through the links you will find in description to this video. Please tell others about my channel. Let's spread the knowledge around the globe. And please like my videos. Thank you for your attention to my work.